All right. Welcome, everybody, to the Power of Our Story. And today I'm so excited that we have Natalie Reilly on. Natalie is the founder of Nothing But Love Notes. It's a freelance writer and eternal optimist, which I have seen, who created a niche for herself in the veteran and first responder community. She found her superpower in the handwritten love note. It was throughout her mother's battle with cancer that she discovered a life of purpose as both a caregiver and as a grateful citizen of this country. Her message is one of love, resilience, and above all things, gratitude. So, Natalie, I'm so happy to have you here to share your story. It's so encouraging.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me. I love telling this story because it's a love story, and I'm sort of a hopeless romantic. And although it started at a very dark place for me, my mother had been diagnosed with cancer in the fall of 2015. And my mom was my best friend. She was everything to me. Like my shopping buddy. She was the one that I used to lean on. She was a rock. She was 5'0", but she was determined and strong and brave and all these things that she passed on to me, which I didn't kind of took for granted. You know, growing up, I was trying to resist, being any respectable daughter would try to resist her mother's influence and try to be her own woman. But she really did pass along all of these qualities to me. And it wasn't until I became her caregiver that I realized that I had that much strength inside of me, because that was the hardest thing I've ever had to do. It was 2 years of taking care of her and bathing her and feeding her. And it was a few months into her treatment that she started going to a depression. She wasn't coming out of her room. She wasn't eating. She got completely stubborn. And suddenly our roles had reversed, and I became the mother, the one, the determined one, getting her out to her doctor's appointments, which she resisted. She hated going for her treatments. And it was really difficult. So come Valentine's Day, it'll be 5 years this Valentine's Day. I was sitting on a couch and I was feeling sorry for myself as her caregiver. And she was in her room feeling sorry for herself. And it suddenly occurred to me that I wasn't acting like the woman she raised me to be. And she certainly wasn't acting like the rock I knew her for. So I pulled her out of her room and I told her that we were going to go out and do something for Valentine's Day. I had bought a big bunch of cards through, for the past few months, and I'd stuffed them in a drawer. Thank you cards you always intend to write, to send out. And I knew that in the back of my mind, I wanted to do something. I wanted to create something. Being a writer, I just thought we landed there. So I pulled her out of her room. We sat down at the kitchen table and we wrote 50 thank you notes for veterans. She loved veterans. She had her uncles both served in the Army and were killed in the Bataan March. And so she always had this affinity for vets. And she's the one that suggested, let's write them for veterans. And we did, and we wrote a handful for some first responders and even a handful for some just regular everyday citizens saying Happy Valentine's Day. I loaded her up in the car, and we literally just drove around for 3 hours, and we looked for these individuals. We made a couple of we were running errands, so we ran into the grocery store, and we found some veterans in there, and we handed them to them. And all of a sudden, we were having conversations with these men who had served in the Korean War and the Vietnam War, and we're standing in the middle of the frozen food aisle, and the guys are like, yeah, thank you so much. He says, but I never talk about my service. We get that a lot. Guys don't talk about their service. And then usually about 30 minutes later, we've heard their whole story because of a little thank you note that we wrote. By the time we got home 3 hours later, we were laughing and smiling, and we had a great time. And she looked at me, and I will never forget this. She looked right in my eyes and said, I don't even remember what I was so worried about. And so from that day forward, we started going to Starbucks or local coffee shops, and we'd sit down every morning and we'd write a handful of notes, and we would keep them in our purses. And when we'd find these people, we would stop them and hand them out. Or if we'd see their vehicles, sometimes you see a police officer or a firefighter in the grocery store, we'd stop them and hand them out or leave them on their trucks or their cars. And there were days when we wouldn't see anyone, so we would just drive through parking lots. We'd go through the Walmart parking lot, go up and down the aisles, and just leave notes. We had so much fun doing that, and from that, we had so many amazing conversations. Suddenly, and you're gonna meet JD here in a little bit, but one of the very first intense experiences that we had was with a veteran named JD at the Fry's grocery store. I was coming out of the grocery store and I saw his truck parked right up front of the store, and it was it was Sunday evening, and I was kind of in a hurry to get home, and I wasn't really paying attention to the fact that he was standing right by his truck. So when I left the note under the windshield wiper of his car, I heard in this really rough, gruff, scary, salty voice, "What the bleep did she leave on my truck?" And it was loud enough that I shook and hair stood up on the back of my neck. And I didn't look back. I just started walking to my car real fast. He'll tell you I was running, but I wasn't running. I get to my car and I'm unloading the groceries, putting the groceries in the trunk. And I look up and this muscle-bound guy is like running at me. And I didn't have time to dart away or flee or anything. It was like a deer in the headlights. And this guy comes up to me and his eyes are wet, and grabs me up into a great big hug, and he just said, "Thank you." He said he had a rough day, and that little note made a difference. I wasn't expecting that. I wasn't expecting these notes to turn into anything more than just getting my mother out of the house and helping maybe find some purpose in my own life outside of being my mother's caregiver. But suddenly here I was, face to face with this guy. He was an Army veteran who served in Iraq. He came back with PTSD and traumatic brain injury, and he was having a really rough time. And so since that day, JD and I are like family. And Chris, he comes with me to speak. He's been a big proponent of this mission, that it has turned into a mission of just being grateful. And at a time where we are in this world right now, it's so important. That I think was a pivotal point for me, because I knew that, it was doing wonders for my mom and for myself, but to see what it could do for another human being, a stranger, a complete stranger. And here we are in the parking lot hugging over a handwritten note. And I've had so many series of those interactions with some of our bravest warriors from Vietnam, from Korea, Afghanistan, Iraq, and nothing can explain the feeling you get when you're standing just randomly in a Starbucks. I had a guy come in, an Army veteran, who, young guy, probably 30, and I'd given him a note, and he took the note and left and thanked me and left. And he came back like 10 minutes later, and his face was bright red. He had tears streaming down his eyes. And he says, "Ma'am, I read your note out in the car, and I had to come back to tell you because I wanted to tell you my story." He says, "My name is Joe. And I served in Afghanistan. I served in the Army for 8 years, did 2 tours to Afghanistan. And I lost my buddy, my best friend, saw him burn alive in an ambush. And I needed to tell you that." And suddenly it was a Saturday in Starbucks. It's slammed. There's people. It's standing room only. And here I am with this kid named Joe, and we're hugging and crying in the middle of this coffee shop. And everybody else is kind of going about their business. They're on their devices. And I'm thinking to myself, this is just amazing. And there's no way for me to explain what that feels like. Just as a human being, to be with another human being in that capacity. I've never seen Joe again. But I won't ever forget his face or his story. And that's the power of this that I wasn't expecting. I wasn't expecting it to be anything more than just getting my mom out of bed. And like I said, I've had so many stories like that. And it's been 5 years, and I have developed so many amazing friendships out of this. I've created, I had a friend of mine say, Natalie, at your most difficult time in your life, you've created this tribe of people that they're your loyal friends, and they're there for you. Which to me, I turned this thing with my mother's help around from, I lost my best friend. She was everything to me, like I said, and now I find myself surrounded by people like Chris and JD, and if they were here, all of them, you wouldn't even believe it. It's just amazing. So part of the reason that I continue this, aside from promising my mother that I would do that, is because I want people to know that if, good, beautiful things come from our broken days, those bad days. If you focus your energy and your light on something that's positive, if you find something to be grateful for every day, it changes everything. My mother died on October 11th, 2017, and that was a hard day. But what I found amazing was that when I lost her, I actually had somewhere to run to. It wasn't, I can't even imagine where I would be had I lost her and not had this to go to. Because that next day, I just carried on with this mission that she and I started. And on her deathbed, she was wise. She was the wisest woman I knew, and she would always say just the right thing at just the right time. So on her deathbed, I was really hoping for this nugget of, some life advice or something she could give me that I could take with me. And the one thing that she left me with was that she said, Natalie, I'm sorry, but you're probably going to be single for a long time. And I had already been single since like 2000, the year 2000. I'm dated here and there, but nothing too serious. So when she said that, I'm like, why? She says, because no man will ever understand you writing love notes to hero types. No guy is going to be okay with that. And I remember feeling sort of resentful, thinking that's what you're going to give me, and that's, I'm going to rot and die alone. But the funny thing is because of this, I met Chris. He was a retired police officer, and I gave him a note, and he turned out to be the love of my life, and which attributes what an amazing story this is. And it wouldn't have happened if not for a love note. If I hadn't gotten up every day and gone to Starbucks and pushed forward, as much as, it hurt, like I said, caring for my mother, those 2 years were hard. They were hard years, but the love notes is what kept me going. And I found these amazing people. I found Chris, I found JD, and this tribe of people. And even being here, I wouldn't even be here in this room with all of you had it not been for that, and for that mission that she and I started together. We've gone to schools, we've spoken to high school students, football programs. We've gone to speak to like 150 high school football players, thinking that how am I going to get them inspired about writing? Boys that age don't usually enjoy that. But it was amazing. It was just absolutely amazing. So that's why I'm here, and that's why I want to continue pushing this story, because I really want people to know that beautiful things can come from the broken bits of our life, and if you just push forward. I'm gonna let JD tell his side of the story, and if Chris, if you want to chime in as well, I invite you to chime in, because you're as much a part of this now more than ever. Chris, I always laugh and I tease him because, like I said, my mother said no man would ever understand what I do. but this guy, he makes me better. He makes me a better human being. And he pushes me to when I get tensed up about approaching police officers, which I have been doing a lot lately, he pushes me to be better. And he makes me want to continue this and make sure that I do. So chime in at any point. So JD?
Yeah. So I'm JD, as Natalie said. Um, I'm 40. I'm an Iraqi veteran. I was a military police officer in the Army. Yeah, I'm a firefighter now. And yeah, so almost 5 years ago, I was loading groceries in the truck. And, as a veteran, a police officer, a firefighter, you name it. As a first responder, period, you have your good days and your bad days, and every first responder will tell you, you go on calls and you see people on their worst day, and there's calls that you would rather forget, just like veterans, there's stuff that you would rather forget than remember. So you come back from a war zone and you lose buddies and you people that have died or whatever the case is, and you've gone through things and you've seen things, and war changes people, and you have your nightmares and different things like that. So you go through your stuff and you have good days and your bad days. And that day I came out of the grocery store, it was a pretty rough day that day. My ex was pregnant with our son, and so she was there, and I'm loading the groceries, and she was like, "Hey, that lady put something on your car." And I'm very OCD about my vehicles, so I don't like people, don't look at it. You're gonna scratch it just by looking at it or breathing on it or whatever. And I usually park way out in the parking lot. And, I got to hike a mile to get to the store. But her being pregnant, I was kind of trying to be nice and park up front. And thinking to myself, well, of course, some park up front, and somebody comes by and puts something on my car and going to scratch my car up. So I said a few words that we won't repeat, and I said them very loudly as I was marching over to get this thing off my window. And she definitely was running. I know she was running. She's a quick lady. I went over, and I'm trying to think of how I'm going to give this, whatever she put on my window, how I'm going to give it back to her. And, some things came to my mind, but I grabbed this thing off my window and I looked down, and it's this little envelope and it says veteran on it. And it kind of stopped me in my tracks. You don't expect that. So, you expect some kind of, solicitation of something or another. Hey, come to our store, buy this. Here's a takeout menu, whatever the case is. But you don't expect an envelope that says veteran on it. So I grabbed it and I opened it up, and, it was a simple little note inside, and I pulled it out, and the note itself, said something to the effect of, thank you for your service. It just something simple, and kind of punched to the gut, in terms of, how I was acting at that point. But it kind of makes you stop and think too, like, you have your days, and, like Natalie said, we've gone and we've spoke at high schools and different office buildings and different venues and stuff like that. And one thing I like to, get across to people is you're not alone. You go through life and you go through things, and everybody's got something going on in their life, and first responders and veterans and different things, we go through a lot of stuff, and not just first responders and not just veterans, and it's anybody. It's the person walking down the street that's walking their dog, or the people that you run into the grocery store. Everybody in life is going through something. This whole thing started with Natalie and her mom, and in their darkest hour, and there's people out there that are going through all this stuff, and we sometimes get complacent, and we sometimes feel like we're the only ones that are ever experiencing anything like that, and we're the only ones going through it, and we're the only ones that could ever know how it feels. But we're not alone. And I think that's what Natalie does, and that's what these notes do. And I think the message of this, and I've told her since day one, I think you'll never understand, you'll never know the impact that these notes have. And I truly, firmly, with all my heart, believe that these notes they have the power to take somebody that's in their darkest hour, and they're getting ready to give up, because 22 veterans a day commit suicide. And that's a huge number. And that's just veterans. That's not including any type of first responder. That's not including just, teenagers or anybody else going through anything. That's just veterans. That's 22 a day. And I firmly believe with all my heart, I believe without a doubt that these notes have the power to take somebody that's getting ready to end it all and have them turn it around, and have them give them something to live for, and to know that they're not the only ones out there that are going through whatever they're going through in that particular time and in their life. There's somebody else out there that's going through it. There's somebody else out there that knows what they're going through, and that feels them, and they're cared about, and they're loved. And man, that's huge, and that's powerful. I went through some things in Iraq, and you got to live with what you do, and you got to live with what you've seen and done. And sometimes it's not hard, it's not easy, it's hard, I think, I think these notes, and the reason I got involved with this, I was involved with some other things throughout the years when I got back from Iraq, and that helped me. And these notes, they're just so powerful. It takes something. It means something to me. For somebody, Natalie didn't know me from anybody that day, and when I got that note, it was like Natalie specifically sat down, her and her mom, and wrote that note for me. And that note was designed just for me. They sat down and said, we're going to write this note, and we're going to write it for JD. And I truly believe if you ask anybody that gets any of these notes, I guarantee you're going to hear that over and over and over and over again. These notes get to the people they need to get to in the right time. We have a gentleman that a couple people that Natalie spoke of, her following and her close friends, and we call ourselves the Wolf Pack. We have a gentleman, Francisco Martinez, and he's a police officer, and Ted Venable. They're both police officers. I was on a ride along with Ted Venable one night, and I have to share this because I think this is kind of shows just how powerful this story is, and how powerful these notes are. I was on a ride along with Officer Venable one night, and Officer Venable and Officer Martinez are best friends. They signed up. They took the test together. They went through the whole process together to get hired with the police department. They went through the academy together, and they're working the same beat. They've been through their whole careers together. They've become super, super close, and they're best friends. Well, the night I was on a ride along with Officer Venable, Francisco Martinez was hit on his motorcycle. He's a motor officer, and he was hit. Someone ran a stop sign, and he T-boned the vehicle. He was chasing a couple people that were drag racing, and the call came out. We heard him over the radio give his call sign, and then it went silent. There was another officer out that had said that there's an officer down. When this happened, Officer Venable and I were transporting someone, and I could see the frustration in Officer Venable that he couldn't go and be there for his best friend in his best friend's darkest hour. And so Officer Venable starts talking to me, and he's telling me about Frankie, and I can hear it in his voice, and the concern and the growing concern. And we're listening to the radios, and there's just so much radio traffic on. Everybody's just trying to find out what's going on and get fire there, and just try and get control of everything. And in that moment, the only thing I could think about was texting Natalie. And the only thing I could think about was, you know what, we have 2 officers and more, actually. I mean, we have a whole department, really, right? Because the whole department is affected by this. But right now we have 2 officers that are in dire need of people reaching out to them and telling them how much they're loved and how much, you know, this community is pulling for them. I'm sure if, and I know for a fact that if Officer Venable was sitting right here, he'd tell you, he looked over and saw me on my phone, just texting away. And I'm sure the thoughts that went through his head weren't nice. You know, thinking, here I am pouring my heart out, and my best friend just got hit by a car and he can't be there for him. And this dude sitting in my car is on his phone texting while I'm pouring my heart out to him. But me and Natalie, you know, I texted Natalie and I told her, I said, hey, Natalie, we got to get something set up. This just happened. And I got all the details. I started, you know, I got done with my ride along, and Officer Venable went to the hospital after his shift. So he could be with Frankie. Frankie had a bunch of surgeries that night, so he really couldn't see him. I was able to get a hold of Officer Venable and find out where Frankie was. Me and Natalie went to Starbucks, her favorite place in the world, I think. And we sat there and we got, I don't know how many, I think it was over 100 and something notes in a short amount of time. We got people, everybody that walked through the door, we got them to write a note. We got Starbucks to donate a bunch of stuff. We went to Chick-fil-A, got a bunch of notes from Chick-fil-A, got Chick-fil-A to donate a bunch of stuff. And we hand delivered it. Natalie says, I don't know what we're going to do. How are we going to get this to him? I said, don't worry about it. Come on, let's do this. You know, we walked into the hospital like we owned the place, walked right into his room. Here's his family and his closest friends in his room. And here's Frankie waking up from surgery and looking at us going, well, I don't know if I know you or not, but cool. Hey, what's up? And so, you know, we hand him all this stuff and I mean, just the tears of joy in everybody's faces in that room, just amazing. And if Frankie was sitting right here talking to you guys, the story that he would tell and the power of those notes, he read every single one of those notes. And it took him well over a year to get back, but he is back on full duty now. And he attributes it to those notes. And it's just, it's powerful. It's way beyond anything. You know, my story is nothing compared to all these other stories out there. And Natalie's right. She meets all kinds of people everywhere, and they all have the same stories. And these notes, just the power that these notes have is just amazing to me. And I've told her again from day one that you'll never know the power that these notes have. And it's amazing. And I love it.
Yeah, I thought we were going to get arrested that day, by the way. I thought there's no way we're going to be able to walk into a police officer's hospital room and without getting arrested. And we walk in, and it's literally standing room only of family and friends. And poor Frankie is sitting in his bed. You know, he's got his arm in pins, and it was a mess. But it was beautiful. I wouldn't have gone in there without you, JD. He just kind of stormed in, and I went in behind him. But it's amazing. And Chris, I'm sure you've seen plenty of it too, of the good stuff that we encounter.
Well, I'll try to keep it somewhat short if that's even possible with me, but so I think everybody knows me. For the people that are going to see this later on, I'm Chris, obviously Natalie's boyfriend now that she decided to follow to California with, which is pretty awesome. So I'm going to go a little bit of a different direction with this whole thing, because I've spoken with JD and some other guys on our wolf pack, and he did mention her superpower, which is different than what I'm going to say, because her real superpower is making grown men cry. And the very first time I spoke with the group, keep in mind, I'm already retired. I've done my PowerPoint public speaking thing probably 75 or 100 times. Not once ever have I lost my composure until I spoke for her. And every time we speak in public together, it's always like a sob fest. Like, oh my God, what happened here? So,
just the men, by the way.
Just the men,
Oh, no,
typically, yeah.
I'm lying. The women too.
Well, sometimes they laugh at us first, and then they start crying. So, but so I knew it was very impactful, and the very first time I actually saw it in real life, which is what I recommend when everybody else wants to get involved with this whole thing. When you see it the way that I saw it for the first time, I mean, I couldn't believe it. And this is why I push her so hard and continue to do this. Short version, basically, we're going to go do a public speaking thing, sort of a thing, over in Carlsbad, California. And she had left a note on a veteran's car, turned out to be a Vietnam vet, earlier that morning. And then he came back later when he found her on Facebook and found what we were going to be doing and stuff. And I'm still in uniform, unarmed. I'm not carrying a gun anymore, but this guy, he's kind of rough, you know, Vietnam vet guy, older, and he comes out and he's got this note in his hand. And it's me surrounded by probably, 8 women, something like that, in a little semicircle. We're doing like a handwritten note party thing. So I'm the only dude there. And this guy comes out and he's holding this note in his hand. And he's got this look on his face like he's going to kill us all. And I'm like, I'm reaching for my gun because I'm thinking to myself, oh my God, I got to protect this whole thing. And basically what he says is, I got this note in my car this morning. And then he starts freaking bawling. I'm like, where did that come from? Oh my goodness. So the two of them end up making this huge, impactful hug and the whole 9 yards. Now I'm like, oh my God. So I'm freaking bawling my eyes out. It was amazing. So that was the first time I really saw the impact that this thing had. And now we've been together for 2 years almost, give or take, since I got on board with this thing. And it's one story after another, after another, after another. And it's just, this story is better than this story, and this story is better than this story. Well, the one story that I got to tell you guys is even better than all these other stories combined. So, again, I'll try to keep it short. So, we left my house, walked down to our favorite pizza joint, which is a couple miles from my place. And we walked through the neighborhood there, and then ate dinner the whole 9 yards. It's kind of a cool evening out. It's dark. There's a lot of overcast clouds and stuff. And so as we're walking back on the beach toward my place. And, you know, mind you, we've been together for, year and a half or something at this point, something like that. And we've talked about this 1,000 times over, the whole 9 yards. I've been there for the speaking stuff and the whole 9 yards. Knew the story front and back, the whole thing. And out of the blue, the first time ever, she says to me, she goes, I wish my mom had left me a note before she passed. Okay, and what do I say to that, right? You know, we've been walking for probably maybe a mile, give or take, not really talking, just nice and quiet, enjoying the night. It's beautiful out. She's way down toward the water, and it's pitch dark out, and I had my flashlight because, you know, being a cop, that's what we do. So walking along, and I mean, in total darkness, I find what ends up being a group of rocks and words written in the sand. And basically what's written in the sand is hope, and then there's rocks with peace and love on there. Well, I saw that and I waved her over really quick. I go, hey, you got to see this. Well, for those that don't know, Nat's mom's name was Hope. And again, this is right after she says, I wish she had left me a note. And then we find this in the sand, and it was like unbelievable. I mean, it was just like the most unbelievable moment you can ever imagine. And so I think that because of all that she has done for the community, I mean, everybody, I mean, we've handed them out to just moms dealing with their poor kids, and nurses, and obviously firefighters, veterans, you know, World War II vets, everything, you know, cops, the whole 9 yards. Now I think her mom has paid her back for her efforts, which is, to me, the greatest thing ever. I mean, it's unbelievable. I mean, I still tell that story, and I'm like, okay, got to try to make it through without bawling your brains out again. So, so I thank her for her efforts, and I thank all of you guys for being involved, because it's just huge. And if you guys do want to get involved, and you experience this for yourself firsthand, you'll know exactly what JD and I are talking about with this whole thing. When you see this happen, you're like, wow, and then you just want to keep on doing it. And it's so inspiring. It's just awesome. So. Okay, that's my short version, so I'm done.
Yeah, I certainly never expected all of this to come from it, but I really truly believe, looking back, that the good that you put out in the world comes back to you like times 100. There's just no way to explain some of the things like Chris said about the beach. I mean, I broke down in tears like immediately, because there's something bigger at work for all of us. And I feel like if we focus on the right things, if we focus on doing good things and being good, putting good out into the world, that it just comes back to you. And my life has changed completely. I'm in California because of a love note. I would never have been here had I not met Chris and come out here. And this is where I've always actually wanted to be. My life is so amazing. And from that, going back to that day, Valentine's Day, 2016, that was a dark day. And I couldn't have imagined all of this coming from it. I couldn't have imagined all these people in your faces and knowing you. And I think more than ever, I think that's the message I want to spread now. And I'm having people, since we were on Kelly Clarkson, and they did a news story on me this morning for local San Diego. I think what I want people to know now more than ever is that, you can't even be on social media and not feel some sort of anger or frustration because of the way the world is being portrayed. And my advice is just to get away from that and to go out. And we can't solve world hunger. We may not be able to create world peace, but you can do something for somebody. And that, to me, will lead to ripple effects to something bigger, if not for other people, but for you as well. So, any questions?
What an absolutely beautiful story, and so inspiring. Every time I hear your story, Natalie, I just get re-inspired. And it's amazing. It's beautiful, the ripple effect that it's had on people. And I'm so glad that you're sharing it, because a lot of the times we can think of, well, how much impact could a note have? And just to hear JD and Chris also share the impact that those notes have had, and the impact on your life and your mom's life as she was struggling and you were struggling so much, and how it just absolutely changed all of your lives. It's just such an inspiring story. Yeah, I'm excited about helping the story get out.
And trust me, there are still some days, even to this day, where I wake up and I'm like, is this really doing, you know what I mean? I've put a lot of my energy and my money and my time, and then I'm like, Chris is like, do it, go do it. And I'm like, I do it and I never regret it. I haven't had a bad experience. It's just amazing. And I just am so in love with my life and the people in it. And I think back to what my mom, what would she think about all of this? And one of the last things that she did write to me in a note, I think it was for my birthday or something, she wrote, "Be mighty in the land." And I loved that, because she always wanted, she never saw herself as being brave or strong. She was, like I said, 5'0", kind of quiet and shy. And so I think she put a lot of her expectation into me. And for a long time as a teenage girl, I resented it. I didn't want to be like her. But now, as I'm out in the world, I know that I am the woman that she wanted me to be. And doing this mission, serving in this capacity, and seeing how, I'm connecting with the veteran community, the first responder community. Like I said, I never set out to do that. That was never the goal, or to be here sharing my story was never the goal, but it is where I am, and I'm so happy to be here and just love it.
It is incredible. It's incredible that whatever we focus on, if it's something positive or if it's negative, that is what just seems to happen in our lives. And just this amazing wolf pack community you have built just by writing a note, and the ripple effect. It's like if everybody did that,
I know the world It's so simple, but it's stupid. You know what I mean? Like, it's so easy. And I was laughing thinking about JD's story about Frankie, the motor officer. He ended up, he had his very last surgery was up here in LA. And so Chris and I are like, sure, you come stay with us. Chris took him up there every day for 5 days that week that he was out here. Took him up, for all the procedures to get ready for it, all this stuff. And then one day Chris brings him to my place because he was staying with Chris. He brings him to my place, and I didn't expect him to be in such poor shape after this procedure. I didn't know what he was getting done, but he was like, he could barely walk. He was just this, and he's a young kid. He's, I don't know, maybe not even 30. And so I'm putting Frankie in my bed, and I'm offering him toast or soup or whatever. And I'm like, how did this happen? I don't even really know this person. And he's put his trust and faith in me to help, and Chris, to help him through this. At a really pivotal time in his career, because he was really hoping he needed to get back within a year. And I was like, it went from bursting in this guy's hospital room to now he's in my room and I'm caring for him, making him soup and toast. And Chris and I are, teaming up to get this guy back on his feet. And now he is. I'm just like, whoa. If somebody would have told me that was going to happen, I wouldn't have believed you.
Wow. So many stories, huh?
Mm-hmm.
So many stories from the Love Notes.
Right now, I'm writing the book.
Hey, Nat, this is Dave. Sorry I got on late, but the tail end of what I caught from all of this is the sentiment of be the change you want to see, right?
Yeah.
And you epitomize that by doing all of these things. You want to see change in some of the cultures, and you want to let people know they're appreciated, and you're going out and you're making those things happen. And in the process, you're impacting people in really positive ways. And that is incredibly commendable. And you can't, this is not something you could even put a price tag on, right? So it's very much priceless what you're doing. So I think it's fantastic.
Yeah, well, you like I say, you go online and you get angry and upset and you want to type out, but that doesn't fix it. That doesn't fix where the world is hurting, and sometimes, like I say, I go out there and I'm writing notes. I'm like, what am I doing? Is this really making an impact? But then all of a sudden JD will text me, or I'll hear from Frankie, and I'm like, yeah, this. And right now we have people, like I said, after some news coverage, we have people from Texas and Iowa and Illinois wanting to reach out, and they're starting to pick it up where they're at. So if we can just get more people involved, who knows what we can do.
I mean,
Actually, Nat,
go ahead, Dave.
No, go ahead, Sarah. Sorry.
Okay. I was just going to say that, that's so funny. I just lost my thought. Go ahead, Dave. I'll remember after you.
Sorry, Sarah, that's my fault.
Okay.
No, actually, so Brenda was kind enough to connect me to a nursing organization, and I did some culture training for them last weekend. And in that class, we were kind of talking on some of the things that could be done for first responders. And I mentioned Natalie's letter writing campaign. So Natalie, I'm probably going to connect you to this lady, Linda, that Brenda knows, because I was sharing that with her and she was very much intrigued by what you're doing. And I think, to your point, if we can get more people to do it, then we actually have an impact on the culture, right?
Yeah.
And how people view first responders. So I'm definitely going to share your information with her.
We've had, even like I said, we've spoken at high schools, and usually the teenage boys mostly are the ones that are like, they'll come up to some of the police officers who come and speak with us. They've come up to Chris or Sergeant Zach, and they'll say, I was afraid of police until today. Had a couple of them write that in a note and give it to these officers. So yeah, I mean, it's a great way to connect. I'm really passionate about getting the youth involved because writing, handwriting letters is a lost art. It's a dying art. Today's youth is so consumed by digital devices, but those don't make the impact that the handwritten note does. So I'm very passionate about getting people involved.
We've done a couple of the little schools with the little third, fourth graders, and just watching them light up and being able to see them get involved, and that was really super cool to be able to be involved with that stuff. Catch them early and just teach them about the first responders and veterans and the people that they know that are in their family and the difference that they can make in their lives. That was super cool.
So cool to see that. And I mean, just, whether you're the giver or the receiver, I think the thing is that we heal in community. We heal when we're not alone. And just the way, just having JD and Natalie, both of you, the giver and then the receiver, and now you all are working together, and then Chris and working together to just show appreciation. And again, it's so edifying for the giver and the receiver. And then again, to know it brings people together so they're not alone. It brings people together. So, because that is where we heal. We heal in community. And when people go through trauma and the veterans and the first responders, you go through trauma, the reaction is, I want to isolate. I'm hurting. I feel usually the shame comes up that is totally misplaced. But if there's not a community telling you, you know what, you're great, we love you, there's no reason to feel shame. You didn't do anything wrong, or you talk something out. I mean, that's the place that you can really heal. And it's just amazing how many different angles this is hitting. Mm-hmm. Just these notes, how many different angles.
Sarah, I gotta piggyback on that a little bit. So Nat and I are in Phoenix, probably but at least a year ago, maybe longer. And we were talking to a friend of mine who I've known for pretty much my entire career. Obviously, I've since retired. He's still on. And we went to their house and we're knocking on the door. And out of the blue, he pulls out a note out of his lunch pail that he got from her 2 years before. And I'm like, so our world is just getting smaller and smaller and smaller. And the point is that, like in JD's case, he gets the one note, which I'm sure he still has. But a lot of these guys keep that note forever. And like with Sergeant Zach, another guy from another agency in Arizona, he's got it on his desk, and when he's having a bad day, he reads the note and he has a reminder, and it's like, it's just like a reset button for him. It's just amazing, just absolutely amazing. So we hear those stories all the time too. So
I get a lot of text messages from buddies of mine that are first responders, firefighters, police officers and stuff that, hey, I just met the love note lady, and hey, check it out. Or, I just got one of those love notes. These little kids ran up and gave it to me. And, cause they all know I'm involved, and they all know I do a lot of stuff with Natalie, and I, Natalie, she said it earlier, we're family, and, I will do it. And she calls me and I'm like, what do you need? It don't matter where it is or what it is, I'm there. Just this story is amazing, and the people that this impacts is just like Chris said, it's getting smaller. The world is getting smaller, and I mean the reach is crazy.
Yeah. Hey, Natalie, you know what? It just dawned on me. Well, not really, but when you guys came to our class last month, I frequently have a captive audience of first responders, a whole classroom full of them. So maybe there's an opportunity that during the class, we hand out these notes during class.
I love it.
As kind of a way, and I would even say kind of even towards the end of the day, because now you're going to depart the day with this love note, right? You got all this training, you learned about all these different things about mental health and veterans and crisis intervention, and now you're going to be told that not only did you get all this good training, but now how loved and appreciated you are.
Yeah.
Like, that sends people off into a good space, I think. What do you think about that?
I love it. I do. I think it's fantastic. Mm-hmm.
And Dave, did you know that she actually did that for your class?
Yeah, I know.
Okay, I was making sure because
Yeah, I thought it was.
okay, just making sure. So
No, absolutely. Well, and actually, Natalie spoiled me. She gave me two notes. One because I'm a veteran, and one because I was a cop. I thought it was, no, I love it. I think it's a great idea. You know, and given the fact that law enforcement has been kicked in the teeth for the last year, I think that these folks need to hear those kind of things,
Yeah,
right?
It's always so unexpected. When I approach police officers, it's very unexpected. You know, they're used to hearing some not so good things, you know.
Yeah.
So I love when I'm able to kind of break past that defense that they have going on when you approach them.
Yep.
You know, it's amazing. I had some great conversations with some of those officers at your training.
Yeah. Well, you're always welcome. And we're gonna be ramping up more training, you know, this year, next year. So, you know, you better break out your pens.
That's what I do.
Yes, I love it.
How do you encourage people, Natalie? Like, if people want to get involved in writing notes, do they send them to you, or is it just a movement? You just go and you write your notes and find police officers and veterans?
I really try just to lead by example. So my Facebook pages and stuff, I just post me doing it, and I try to share the stories, the good feel good stories. But I always encourage people just to do it. Pick up a pen, you'll get some cardstock, write some notes. I encourage them to put our hashtags so we can track, because a lot of times these heroes like to reach out and say thank you, or, you know, tell us how it impacted their day. So I really do. I encourage people from all over just to pick up and get involved.
And it's called Nothing But Love Notes.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing But Love Notes. Hashtag Nothing But Love Notes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. And then Natalie also has a Facebook page, like she just said. So there's, you know, those ways to connect and get in touch and just have camaraderie in writing these notes. And maybe you can people can share their stories with you.
Yeah,
right?
That's what I'm hoping for, because, you know, you do the power of our story, and we all have one. We all have a story, and I've learned so much about so many people, and there's a commonness among us all. You know, I mean, we all, I think, just want to be heard and loved at the core of who we are, and those stories help us do that. We connect through our stories.
It really is true. We connect if we can get past the content of, you know, the jobs that we put our identity in. If we can get underneath that. Yeah, that's how I started doing the power of our story, is, you know, losing my dad to suicide, then meeting this veteran who's a combat veteran. What do we have in common? Absolutely nothing in the content of our lives, except that we both know what it's like to feel trauma, and how do you get out of that? And then, you know what, Dave, I never bring this up, but remember that conversation that you and I had too? We had this one conversation. We talked for about an hour, and we definitely felt like we connected over some traumatic events in our lives. And then this partnership came for the first responders, because we had that conversation and shared our stories. So that was what, a year ago, Dave?
Yeah, roughly a year ago. You know, and to your point, Sarah, I think that, and to your point too, Natalie, I think all of us have our individual talents, skills, and abilities that we're trying to use for better, right? So we're all doing things that, well, in my opinion, that make the world a better place, right? You know, and you know, I've said this to Sarah before, but it's like, I just try to do my best to make my small corner of the world better. That's it. You know, I do my thing, but that leads me to work with great people like you all, you know, that also want to do stuff. But you guys have other talents, abilities that I don't have. So it's like it becomes this natural kind of connection where we're all moving in the same direction.
Yeah.
And I love it. I think it's awesome.
Me
You
too.
know,
Can I add a full circle moment here?
you
Sure.
can, Brenda. Absolutely.
Okay.
You go ahead
And
and knock it out of the park, girl.
Knock it out. Here it goes. Okay. And if I cry, it's because I related to Natalie, who said she lost her best friend and took care of her, because been there, done that. So I connect with Natalie in ways that Natalie doesn't even know. So here's my full circle. So and Dave's in this circle. So like I met Dave because I work with suicide prevention. The reason I work suicide prevention is because I lost a friend to suicide. And I've lost coworkers to suicide. So Dave has a partner that I'm connected to because Dave's partner was friends with my best friend that passed away, and we all worked up the street together. So that's my connection that way. And then I referred some nurses that I know because they wanted me to speak, because I'm a first responder, to speak to those first responders. But because I got my own health issues going in, I sent Dave in. So Dave went to that presentation and Dave presented, and Dave, you didn't invite me. And Dave connected Natalie's work to them. So like, I feel like it's a full circle moment, that even though like I haven't personally met Natalie, you know, like the way Dave and I connected, and then I connected Dave over there, and then you know, Dave was connected to Natalie over there. Like, I feel like when Dave told his little story of how he was going to connect them to Natalie, I feel like, okay, I did my part.
Well, yeah, we are all connected. And that's been the most amazing thing, is that, like Chris said, I mean, I've given notes to many of his friends that are still on the force. I've met them, I've known them. In fact, in 2019, I was invited to the policeman's ball by one of my Love Note recipients. And it turns out Chris had helped him in rifle training and did wonders for this guy. So he knew him before I knew him, but we ended up all going to this policeman's ball together. And I'm like, this world is really just so small. And, you know, to your point, Brenda, I mean, yeah, it is a full circle. I mean, I wouldn't even be here if not for you, all of you, in some way. So.
And it makes me understand why I got a call the other day too, asking me if I was going to resign my position or if I was taking work somewhere else. So I don't know what else you said about me, Dave, but somehow must have got back, because they called me to ask me if
I didn't say anything about you, dear. I said nothing.
Okay.
Nada. So yeah,
Okay.
that wasn't me. That wasn't me.
Okay.
I promise.
Okay. Because they're worried about that I accepted another position. I'm like, huh, what? I didn't do anything. I haven't gone anywhere.
Dave's got your back, Brenda.
Oh, I got you. I got your back.
Yeah,
right.
I got your back.
Thank you.
You know what else?
Not a problem.
You know what else I think is really cool too is that I think one thing that hurts me is before like 5 years ago, I just did not have veterans and first responders on my radar. I just didn't, you know, we all get busy in our own lives, and I had my world, world that I lived in. And so I just didn't think a lot about veterans or first responders. You know, we all just had our job. But what I love, I just feel like, you know, with veterans, I started out with veterans, like how as a nation do we send 17, 18, 19-year-olds off to war? And then we're disconnected. We don't understand what it's like for them. We don't understand what it's like for them, whatever their job was in the military. You know, they sign on that line. That's huge right there. You can even just stop right there. So they come back, and the fact that we really don't understand how hard that transition time is. And just even with everything with first responders, and there's so much that we need to connect with. We need to all be connected in the hardship of what our veterans and first responders go through. And I love the fact that these notes are a bridge. It's you give somebody a note and they share their story, and again, that's exactly why I'm doing this, because a veteran shared his story. And I'm like, how could I not know this? And that changed my life. It changed my direction.
These boats catch them off guard. They're not expecting a woman to walk up to their car window. I walked up, this guy was sitting outside of Target waiting for his wife. She ran in and I saw he was a Marine. He had a Marine license plate. And I walk up and I'm like, hi, sir, are you the Marine? And he's like, yeah. And I'm like, here, this is for you. Just wanted to say thank you, and gave it to him and walked away. Later, he posted it on my Facebook page or sent me a message saying just that. This is a way to bridge, this community. This is a way to bridge human kindness. It's just something so simple, but and then I learned, about him, and it's just like I wouldn't have. I had no idea. We walk around and we have people that are veterans or first responders, and like JD said, regular people who are hurting, and we're all amongst each other, but we're not privy to it, and we're not very tolerant of one another to really get down to the nitty gritty that we're all hurting. We all have something that's hurting us on one day or on any given day. And if we would just take time to just say, hey, it's okay, it's all right. And I think that was my mom's biggest gift, is that she always just knew the right thing to say at the right time, and it always made it feel okay. And I feel like if I can help continue with that as her legacy, then I've done my job, and then I can, I saw regret in her eyes when she died. She always said, I could have done more, I should have done more. And I hope somewhere out there she knows that she's still, through me, working it. So yeah.
What a legacy.
Yeah.
What a beautiful legacy she left through you and your work and everything that you're doing. That's really cool. Does anybody else have any questions?
No, but thank you for what you're doing, Natalie. And Dave for making my day and saying that you made that connection with them.
Like I say, Brenda, I always do what I can.
Thank you.
Thank you for letting me share my story. It always, it just, for me, it just makes me very happy.
Well, thank you for sharing it. Fantastic. Great talk tonight. Thanks so much, Natalie, and all of you.
Thanks.